Hey there, Crustacean Nation, and welcome back to another Coach's Corner here on the Athens Rock Lobster Network. At the time of recording, the team is coming off of a 3-game sweep of the Baton Rouge Zydeco. The team is currently in the number 1 spot in the Continental Division and is going into a really exciting 2-game matchup against the top team in the Empire Division and reigning FPHL Commissioner's Cup champions, the Binghamton Black Bears. I'm Matteen Rad, and I'm joined as always by head coach Steve Martinson. Coach Marty, to have a chance to end the season top of the Continental Division, those 3 games against Baton Rouge were almost of a must-win status. Was that a pressure that you and the team felt at all?
Well, we were playing, we're playing for first in our division. That's one thing that's one of our goals. And unfortunately, we don't play, you've heard me say it, we don't play Carolina. So we can't, it's not, you have to now it's we're in complete control of it. As long as we win out, they can't catch us. So unfortunately, we don't play them head to head enough. It's a 5-hour difference. Why we're not playing them, is a whole different ball game. But anyway, we're back in control of first in the division, and it can mean a lot in the playoffs because you get home ice in the first round and the second round.
It was 3 games where we saw different personnel come in and out, and also everyone really had kind of consistent performances. With the depth that you have and also the performance from last weekend, is your team making it difficult for you to know who your best 18 guys are?
Well, part of it is you're going with the guys that are hot. I mean, we were trying to get a third line that, I don't want to say a third line. We're trying to get another line that was scoring. And obviously we got that Sunday. So those guys are going back. And, Bo has just been out of the lineup for a long time, and he's a little bit rusty, and he's got to practice more. He practiced about 4 or 5 days. And so, it's very competitive to be in the lineup, and that's one of the things that, if you want to have a team that wins in the playoffs, you got to have depth.
It's not only about what guys are getting picked, but also who's getting played where, especially with the depth of defensemen that you have right now. Carter Shinkaruk, Kyle Powell, Troy Murray were all blue liners that we saw deployed at forward some point during the weekend. Going forward, 4 games left, and then the playoffs, results matter now more than ever. Is versatility going to have to be the most important quality for the guys to have to keep a spot?
I think it's more performance based. We've got one of the reasons that Carter went up to center is he was a center his whole life. He only switched to defense a couple years ago, and Carter likes to carry the puck. So, he likes to play defense, but he also looked at the depth of our team, and we just said, hey, let's try this. And he was frustrated at times throughout the weekend, but I think he was happy by the end of the weekend, on how that lineup, performed. And like I said, going into the playoffs and beating the top teams in the league, we got to get scoring, and we've got to get all our lines got to outplay the other lines. We just can't count on it. And you saw that, on Sunday night, Phil's line wasn't having a big night. And those guys have carried us at times. Garrett's line, but typically both those lines are carrying the team, offensively. And so it was a great opportunity for, Carter's line to step up in the third period and make some plays and get some goals. And that's what we were looking for.
Do you feel like sending Shanks from the blue line to center, does that give you more of an opportunity? I know you always say you don't like to call lines first line, second line, third line.
Yeah.
Is sending Shanks to forward, does that give you more of an opportunity to balance all of your talent on 3 lines?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. And you're really ultimately trying to win the game. If you have to stack a line to win the game, you stack a line. If you can spread out the scoring and spread out the depth, and win games, I prefer to do that. But number one priority is to win the game. So, but I know that we needed to get, it's easier to win games if you have 3 lines that are consistently scoring goals. And I know, from historically speaking, sometimes you can get a line that doesn't have a good night, especially in a short, like we're dealing with, best of threes. And, a goaltender, we've seen it. We had games with Blue Ridge where we took 86 shots and didn't score a goal. So, in a small series, a goalie can really step up, and you need to have, you need to take advantage of all your chances. So the more chances you get, the better off you are. So I like our depth now. And then the other thing, we were so deep at defense. If Carter stays at D, we're sitting out multiple defensemen that can help the team. So that becomes a really, really competitive situation too. I could activate Orca tonight, and he's been one of our top forwards, but he hasn't skated much, and he'll probably go in tomorrow night. But it's just a situation now where you get bumped out of the lineup for any reason, injury or whatever, and there's guys that are going, and Stefura stepped up and made some plays, and so it's just gotten more competitive.
We'll talk about Andrew more in just a second as well. But going back to that first game, it was the only one that came down to a wire. I was hoping that maybe you could give us an explanation of what was one of the most confusing plays I've seen this season. There's pushing and shoving in our offensive zone during the third period, guys tying each other up. Baton Rouge with odd numbers other way go and score to make it 4-3, and it gets waved off. We kept waiting for a whistle. We never heard one in the booth. Was there a whistle that happened that we couldn't?
So there is a rule that the referee, if he was intending to blow the whistle and he didn't, and you'll see it in getting goals that get waved off where the whistle hasn't blown yet, and it'll blow after the goal. And he was saying, "No, I was intending to blow the whistle dead, play dead." So that was the rule there. He was intending. Should he have blown it dead? Yeah, he should have blown it dead long before that, but he didn't. And so that was kind of a mistake that they made. And that at some point he just said, I was intending to blow the whistle, but I was involved maybe in the altercation. That's why he didn't. But it's clearly a dead play and shouldn't have been a goal.
Interesting. You came out with a win ultimately, and that's the important thing. But looking at that Friday night game, only 23 shots on goal. They scored 3. You scored 4 on 42. You got the win, but were there aspects of that game that were frustrating for you? And if so, were those frustrations more on the offensive side or the defensive side?
Well, I mean, even Sunday night, we gave up some soft plays on goals, and they scored a power play goal. That was kind of a freaky thing. It was it was shot from the goal line that just happened to get in. There's about 3 inches that it could get in, and it did. And the guy had just skated through and screened the goalie at the time. It was just kind of a weird, perfect play. And sometimes when those things happen, you just got to throw it out. You got to say, okay, we could have killed the penalty a little bit better right before that. We should have killed the play, but we didn't. Sometimes plays happen, but ultimately, when you have the offense to make up for, a miscue, it makes things a lot easier, to deal with. But yeah, right now it's, we've often had a couple of soft goals. I mean, a couple of goals on Sunday were, I didn't like their goals. They soft play coming out of the corner, and the goalie was sitting down on the third goal, and all he had to do was shoot it in the net. So I wasn't really impressed with everything on those goals, but that's why you play the game.
That definitely was a sight to behold, that goal that was scored from the tight angle. But Daniil Glukharev had one in that game as well, danced into the slot, a no-look backhanded shot that beat Bernard. I know you only care that the puck goes in the back of the net, but do you have any memories of goals that have stood out this year as maybe one of the best, and as Danny's up there?
Yeah, I mean, that was a beautiful goal. I mean, we've had some really nice plays. I mean, I think we should get some of our goals up on our jumbotron before the game. I mean, we've had some beautiful goals, and there's been a lot of them, so it's hard to say which one is which. But yeah, that was a great play. And my comment was it looked like one of my old backhands when we had flat sticks, straight sticks. But yeah, Danny makes some great plays, and he's been money, and he bears down when he gets the opportunity. So. He scored a couple of nice goals last weekend.
You don't often hand out team superlatives. Teams just don't often do that. But in terms of most improved player, is Danny an easy number one in that category?
Yeah, I mean, Danny's really a really good all-around player. He carries the puck, he hits, he back checks, he defends, he's in top shape. He can play a lot of minutes. I mean, he's been, for a guy that started out, he didn't have a point in 6 games, and we go back and talk about it, he was making plays in practice and he looked good in the games, just wasn't getting it done. And it's the old Wally Pip rule. Somebody missed an opportunity. Somebody was playing with Milan's line, and I can't remember. It might have been, Malik had gone up, or I'm not sure what the situation was at the time, but Danny stepped in and stepped up, and he hasn't given up that spot. And He doesn't want to come out of the lineup, and he doesn't want to get Wally pipped.
The next night comes and Andrew Stefura scores the first two professional goals of his career. You've played him recently alongside Milan and Glukharev, so you obviously have a lot of trust in him. What do you think is different about Andrew and what he brings with his skill set?
Well, he's just, he skates, he hits, but he can skate, and he's got a history of scoring goals. He scored 17 goals. He didn't have a lot of goals this year, but their team, sometimes that happens, but he scored a lot of goals in his college career. He had 17 one year. And, usually, if you've done it before, you can do it again, given the same, the right circumstances. So he's made a lot of good plays too. I mean, he's made plays, and he can keep up with that line. That's a critical thing. If you're going to play with Milan and Danny, you got to be able to keep up too.
That night also started with a fight between Kyle Powell and Elias Thompson. They fought each other in each of the three games. I saw them talking a lot in warm-ups. It all seemed very friendly to me. But when a fight is happening on the rip, on the opening draw, how aware are you made beforehand that something like that's going to happen?
Well, we started all our tough guys on Friday night because the last time we played them, they put that number 11 tried to fight Orca, and then he was following Milan around, and you got to send a message back. So part of it was, we sent a message back to their players. We want to be physical on their good players, and then, Powell was like, "Hey, if you want to fight somebody, and I'm here and I'm available." So, that's kind of things that go on, from a running feud sometimes, and Powell, maybe looking for a little extracurricular activity too.
You were known for dropping the gloves in your career. I think the fans know that a player might fight in retaliation to something that an opponent might do to them or a teammate. But this is a community that, in some ways, there's a lot of people who are still learning about this sport. Can you take those who may not know through some of the other motivations for fighting in hockey?
Well, ultimately, the real reason is, you've got, like in a football game, you've got 300-pound guys against 300-pound guys. Now they can get to the quarterback, but ultimately they kind of match up. You got linebackers then who are against linemen, and then running backs, and obviously they can get to the quarterback. But in hockey, you can have a 240-pound defenseman, hitting your 5'9", star player. And what we say is, you can hit Milan, but if you try to hit him too hard, then we're gonna send a message back, and it might be the guy that did it, or it might be your best player. And ultimately, that's my real reason of policing, because even if you hit Milan really hard in a legal check and you put him out for a month, he's our best player, and we got to protect him. And other players too. I just use Milan as an excuse. He's as an example, he's a tough guy and he can take care of himself, but I'm not going to allow teams to, you can hit him as part of the rules, but I pay attention. If I see a guy targeting him, or if I see a guy, trying to give that extra shot on him, then I joke, I was in the revenge business for a long time, and I know it like the back of my hand. So it just amazes me when a coach like, when Port Huron pulls that crap that they did, same thing in Monroe. Do they think that there's not going to be a retribution or a reckoning coming back? They're sadly mistaken. And ultimately, we don't always have the guys to do it. And right now, like tonight, we're playing the team that leads the league in penalty minutes. They lead the league in offense. And, I believe in fighting fire with fire. And so that their highest penalized team is now going to be up against, the most physical defense I mean, I don't recall having a defense as physical as these guys. And so, a side note in tonight's game, I mean, they lead the league in penalty minutes, and I think we've got the toughest team in the league. So we'll see we'll see who comes out on top of the physical battle. But you can bet we're going to be hitting a lot tonight.
And in contrast to that, going back to Baton Rouge, no team has taken less penalty minutes than the Baton Rouge Zydeco this season. But I don't think that's the kind of team we saw both this past weekend or even when we saw them in Baton Rouge. What do you think led to the Zydeco playing a rougher game against us, if you want to call it?
Well, they have to. I mean, you're if you're just going to try to turn the other cheek and allow us to run you over, you're not going to win. You know what I mean? So they're kind of forced into, if you play us and you're going to play us 3 games, and we came out physical. Like, our guys knew what they tried to pull there, and they're desperate. They're playing for their lives. They're playing for their playoff lives, and we got an incident from the other night that I'm appealing the suspension on Greco. I mean, the guy clearly instigated, it's not instigated, he clearly incited Greco to come after him. And he went out of his way to come up to Greco after the goal and on Greco's way to the bench. All the clear inciting issues, but that wasn't, I didn't even know that the league was reviewing it, because why they did it, I don't know, but I guess I do know, but ultimately why, I question that, but it was clearly a result of an incident that was incited by the 96, who's their second penalty minute. He's their second leader in penalty minutes. And he's trying to get to Greco in front of the net on the goal. And then he goes up to Greco. And the reason they have that rule, it's really clear. Inciting can cause aggressive behavior, aggression from your opponent. And you can't go up and run your mouth. And this is one of the things that Baton Rouge said. They run their mouth. You can't go up and run your mouth and say you're going to do something and then have somebody respond and then turtle and say, okay, go ahead and, now it's a suspension. It's not a suspendable act. The aggression by Greco was clearly because he was incited into that by a guy who's the second leading penalty minute guy. And anybody that watched the series knows the Larwood guy runs his mouth the whole game, runs his mouth coming by the bench. And why teams would do that with us, it's just dumb. I mean, to me, it's just dumb. You're going to pay a price. So if you want to play that way, there's a lot of sayings that have been around a long time. And one of them is, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So to have the league or him even cry about it, you're going to run your mouth. You're going to get punched in the mouth. That's what happens in hockey. And that's why in most leagues, you don't have a lot of smack talk, because you got to back it up.
That's a soundbite if I've ever heard one. Going forward to that Sunday game, that was really the cherry on top, a 9-3 win. It got started out with Troy Murray scoring 2 goals. He had scored only 1 through the 27 games he played with us before that. The 2 months in the ECHL with the South Carolina Stingrays, that no doubt benefited Troy, because it's a chance for him to take the next step. Have you seen an improvement in his game since he left over 2 months ago, and therefore are you reaping the benefits of that loan now too?
Well, usually you just get a more of a motivated player, and I don't think he's any more skilled. I think he's more motivated. But one of the reasons he was playing with Milan, so most of the season he was playing with our third line and wasn't generating as much offense. Now he's playing with Milan. He's getting more opportunities to be involved in the play, and when you play with the top players, and he got some opportunities. He made the best of them. He shot the puck well, and he's got it. He's got a good shot, and he's got great speed, and he just needs to keep it simple. When he keeps it simple and just moves the puck up and jumps up in the play and plays his physical game, he's a very valuable player back there.
The first 2 periods of that game were played on a razor's edge, and then from the start of the third period to the end of regulation, it was just a mauling. What was different about that third period where you scored 6 goals compared to the first 2?
Well, I mean, Carter's line stepped up and made a couple of plays, and then they went to the net hard and they played hard, and part of it is a couple of guys sat out. I wasn't happy with Avery's penalty, and, Avery's a big power forward and can't have him, getting a penalty from slamming the glass and, in the penalty box, and Picard hasn't been scoring lately, and so he needed to pick up his game. And sometimes when you get sat out, you get motivated, and wherever you get your motivation, I don't care, but when you need to be motivated and you get it and then you perform, those guys are back in the lineup, and that's what we needed from that line. That line got us going and scored a lot of goals in the third period, and that's what we were looking for.
And the motivation did him well. He had a goal and assist, ended up getting the Gordie Howe hat trick, and so did Matt Garcia. As a noted tough guy, going back to your playing days, where you reached the top level of this game, how much do you value something like a Gordie Howe hat trick, or is that something that fans think more about?
Well, all that stuff adds up, and it adds up when the obviously you want your guys to win their fights, but if they're fighting other tough guys, they're not going to win every one of them. That's why I always say momentum. It's easier to get it from hitting than fighting. But when you play a team 3 times and you have as many physical players that we do, stuff happens. And when you play 3 games in a row, and we had just played them just a couple of weeks beforehand, so we really played them a lot over the last 2 weeks. You start to get some bad blood, and some of their guys run their mouth a lot. They run their mouth, and number 4 is talking all the time, and so I think Garcia just had enough of them. Is like, hey, okay, but put your money where your mouth is, and I have no issue with that. And I think there's a little bit too much smack talk in this league, but I think teams are starting to learn. You probably should watch it when you do it against us.
It's the second most goals scored by the team this season and the most since we scored 10. That was all the way back in the first month of the season in October in Blue Ridge. Is that one of those things that just happens once in a blue moon, or is this a representation of just how well the team is playing right now?
Well, we're adding depth. I mean, we have our deepest lineup. We're sitting out quality players now, and we've got a lot of depth. And like I said, you get Andrew comes in, and Zach comes in, and these guys add offense to the game. And so in the past, maybe we didn't have as much depth, or the depth wasn't scoring, and now we've got a lot of guys, and that's, like I said, I mean, that's the way it has to be in the playoffs. I've had guys that were sat out at the beginning of the playoffs and were big heroes in the finals. So everybody's got to be ready to go, and if you want to win a championship, you can. I've had teams that were good enough to win it, but we didn't, and part of it is because of injuries in the playoffs and guys getting some key guys or physical guys, they get hurt. So I can assure you that one of the most critical aspects is, number one, you got to be good enough, and then you got to have depth. You got to have depth in the playoffs, and it's not as much in this league probably because we don't have best of sevens. But normally a team like us going into a best of seven, we're going to pound people. We're gonna be very physical, and guys are going to get hurt, and that's the type of playoff team that we have really is better, I think, in a longer series. But that's not what we have to start, and we just got to make sure we're ready to go.
This is one of those questions I pondered if I should ask or not. There's 4 games left in the regular season. A lot of fans' minds are already on the playoffs. Obviously, to make it all the way, you're going to have to beat the best and beat the team that's in front of you. But you won't fear anyone because you have a winning record against every team in the Continental. With that being said, is there a preference in which team you would want to play in the first round of the playoffs?
No, that's one thing I don't do. I don't do that because I'm completely out of control. I mean, we want to finish first. We want to finish first in division. We want home ice. Um, I mean, the disadvantage of playing Baton Rouge is, the only thing I'll say is it's a 10-hour bus trip, 9-hour bus trip. So nobody in our division probably wants to play them, except for maybe um, I guess Columbus is closer to them than we are. But yeah, we don't. Nobody wants to bust down to Baton Rouge. It's a nice city. It's a nice setup down there and everything, but it's a long ways away.
There was so much to love about what was happening on the ice with that 3-game sweep, but the crowd off the ice was spectacular as well. I mean, you're someone who has seen the top level of this game, but is the magnitude and the energy of the crowd something that you marvel at as well?
Well, there is. I mean, you could tell the fans are having fun, and why not? I mean, we're scoring goals, we're making hits, and we're fighting. I mean, and it's an entertaining game. And you can see the fans are enjoying it, and that the players feed off of that. When you have a big crowd, they're making a lot of noise. The players love that too, and that's the home ice advantage. From a coaching standpoint, home ice, you get last change, you get the matchups, but we're so deep now, and we don't have anybody that, in my opinion, that's playing, that we have to hide in the roster and have to worry about who we're getting out against. Certainly, especially when it comes playoff time. So our depth is critical when you go on the road and other teams try to get the matchups that they want. We're not going to have anybody that can take advantage of.
2 big games starting tonight against the Binghamton Black Bears. They're the reigning champions in this league, and they have gathered the most points this season as well. As you mentioned, they've gathered the most penalty minutes as well. What do you think makes them special, and how can you try and counteract that?
Well, they have a lot of depth too. They're deep, they're talented, and they're deep and they can skate, and they're a skilled team. I mean, they're well coached, so they got everything. They got everything they need to win, and yeah, it's the battle of the top 2 teams. Not only in the divisions, but in the league. It's kind of a cool matchup that you would have this, right before the end of the year, especially for us because we're new to the league and these guys are the champions. And looking at the North, whoever comes from our division, most likely has got to beat Binghamton. It doesn't look like nobody has stood in their way up North yet. And so the chances of that happening in the playoffs, yeah, you can get an upset in the best of 3. But you pretty much have to count on that. To win a cup, you're going to have to beat Binghamton.
For the FPHL scoring race, a large part of the season, it's been a 2-horse race between Garrett Milan and bingo captain Tyson Kirkby. Milan has been able to get some separation there because of Kirkby's suspension. He's recently back in the team. I know it's a team sport, and they have some other impressive individuals besides Kirkby. You mentioned their depth. But with someone of his caliber, is it tough to not get caught up in, how do we stop the star? How do we stop this one guy?
Well, normally we're going head to head. I mean, we don't have a checking. We haven't had a checking line yet. One of the things that I was trying to do with Carter is to create a line that might be able to play against the other team's first line. Whether we're there yet or not, I'm not sure. It's a team that I haven't seen a lot. I've watched their video and stuff, but some of it goes on how I feel looking at their lines and actually seeing them play live. And we get the matchups. When you're at home, you get the last change. So we'll match up, and most likely to start, you'll see Garrett going head to head with Kirkby, and we'll see who's got the goods. That's kind of what I believe in, but there might be some adjustments to that. It depends on which defense. I mean, I like to get Greco all up against the other team's top line. So, we've got a real physical defense, but Greco's our hardest hitter, and probably Murray and Robertson right there. So I like to get Greco against the other team's top players, and they're going to be in for a long night when they got to play against them.
Last question for me, Coach. The Black Bears are no doubt going to be the favorites in the Empire Division in the Commissioner's Cup playoffs, and at least statistically, the favorites to repeat as FPHL champions. Do you think you'll be making a more detailed note of these two games and the other regular season games you've played, because it might mean the ring at the end of the season?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I don't think anybody thinks that you're going to win a cup without beating Binghamton, and so, what do they got? They got a couple more wins than we do. I think they got 4 more wins than we do, but their division is a lot easier than our division. I mean, everybody knows it. So, that's why you play the game. We're going to see who's got right now. All you're playing for, you're playing for 2 things. We want 6 points. We want 3 points tonight because, we're in a dogfight with, for first in our division. So we want the wins. And secondary is bragging rights. We want bragging rights, that we beat them, and we want to know that we can beat them. And then the third team thing is kind of in the back. Like I said, they lead the league in penalty minutes, and we'll see how they stack up against our team as far as being physical and if that's their game. And like I said, I haven't watched a lot of their hockey, but I know that we're going to come out and play a physical game tonight, and it's going to be a fun game to play in.
Only 4 games left. Bingo at home, Columbus on the road, and then the start of the Commissioner's Cup playoffs, which is making its way to Aikens Ford Arena. Make sure you secure your seats for postseason today.